Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So for today, we have three main aims to cover with you. The first one is to discuss the interplay of space and school belonging through an innovative participatory project where college teachers acted as co-researchers. The second one is to explore how space and belonging converged in a researched outcome, which is this lovely college belonging game. And the third one is to experience the game yourselves if you have time after the seminar. So before we start with the project, we would like to share how we came about to do this project together. And there are two studies before this one that help us to shape this project. So the first one is the Discourses of Deficit and Trust study. Let me define first very briefly what are deficit discourses and culture of poverty. So the deficit discourses is that educators' beliefs towards students are often shaped by difficult educators' beliefs that are often very difficult to challenge, these beliefs that tutors come up with in relation to their students. And that is very linked as well to the concept of culture of poverty, that are the consistent and predictable beliefs, values and behaviors, especially towards the underprivileged. In this case, underprivileged students, and the belief that all people who are poor, for example, have the same problems, the same interests, when that is not the case. So through an exploration of these two concepts in technical high schools across Mexico, and these technical high schools, is important to say that they are regarded generally as second-rated institutions where the majority of their students come from the private backgrounds. And in these schools, I found unequal power relationships between tutors and students that highlight the control that tutors exert upon students. So very big, strict behavior rules towards these students. Students have to come to these schools very perfectly presented in their uniforms, and they are mainly taught to, in their careers later on, to serve someone else in society. For example, nurses or people working in the catering services. And they are not really taught to be leaders, for example, as other things I've seen in more elite high schools in Mexico. So, however, it's important to say that these deficit discourses on the culture of poverty were not homogeneous amongst all the tutors, not permanent. So we could find a lot of contrast and contradictions both in the discourses of teachers and in the practices of teachers towards students. However, these generalized culture of poverty and discourses of deficit do exist and are quite influential. So these findings made me want to bring them to the teachers themselves, and that is the second background study, that is the teachers' jury study. So I brought these findings to teachers through a knowledge exchange proposal, through an innovative workshop methodology that aimed to link the evidence from research and the evidence from teacher professional knowledge. So taking into account that teachers' professional knowledge is very important as well to take into account, not just academic evidence. And teachers acted as jury in these workshops who were assessing this evidence. And 57 teachers came from different high schools in the country, attended this 3-day workshop with two aims, mainly to form an assembly of teachers that would propose recommendations to improve school belonging, weighting these two types of evidence, and based on these recommendations, produce a tangible outcome that could be disseminated across the participants of the workshop as well as their wider networks. And this is where exactly the outcome, which is this one, I'm sure you've seen it somewhere before, is now being disseminated with the aim to then follow up the study with all the teachers who are using the poster. But basically, we collected all the recommendations from the workshop to how can teachers propose their school authorities to improve school belonging at the school level, and as well, what can they do in their own classroom to improve school belonging. So having this two levels of whatever the school management managed to do or not, how I can do in my own classroom to improve school belonging. So this is a background of the study, and now we are going to talk about the study.
We're doing a double act, so I hope it works. And the microphones work. So this is a continuation of Christina's work, and we were thinking, how can we give teachers a voice? How can we get teachers involved in research about school belonging? So, and then in our conversations we had, I brought my thing about game design, and we were thinking, can game design help teachers in a participatory research project? So we applied for Research England for a participatory research project, and the idea will come in the next slide, but so we were successful, and then we added 2 more partners, so Ian, who's here, and Gavin, both graduates of our school. So the project has 3 main pillars. So one is about, of course, school belonging, which is what Christina presented. So it's about, we wanted to know what is happening about school belonging, but we wanted it to be participatory. So the teachers were all co-researchers. We didn't want to come and say, this is what we want to know. Rather, we wanted to work with the teachers and understand what is relevant for them, what they wanted to know. The second part of it is that game design, which was both a methodology and a product. I'll explain that. So a methodology as in, can game design help teachers or the co-researchers understand research better? Of course, they're novice to research. Can the framework of a game help them understand research, help them understand sort of how to get the findings? And the product, because we actually have the product here. So if you stay at 1, we will actually play the game. And the idea was not just so you can play the game, the idea is so that the teachers can use the game in their training or with other teachers or with students. So if they want to discuss school belonging, instead of having a PowerPoint, they can actually play the game and sort of go into characters. And the game is based on the findings that we have from the teachers. So this presentation will focus just on school belonging. We'll talk about future plans about the game design and the participatory research.
So yes, the context of further education colleges in England is similar to the context of technical professional high schools in Mexico, in that both are rated as second rated institutions in both countries, and as well students generally come from the private background. So the literature in England about further education colleges say that they face several challenges. One is that they are asked to improve their nation's skills levels whilst teaching many of those students who have been expelled from their previous schools. So many students, not all of them, but many, face problematic school trajectories, and many also have experiences of SEND, and they still want to achieve their qualifications to enter the job market. But staff across further education colleges have a lot of face a lot of strain, because there is a lot of student dissatisfaction reported in the literature, weak staff-student relationships, high incidence of social, emotional, and behavioral difficulties, as well as staff face work environments of high scrutiny and performativity, very similar to what staff in technical high schools in Mexico face. The literature does not show a lot of positive results across further education colleges, but those who do that say that students appreciate tutors that show sympathetic and relaxed attitudes, treat them like adults, show an interest in their lives outside the college, and also teach them practical curriculum that could have relevance for their work environments or future employability. And this resonates a lot with the results of the teachers' jury study. So the particular college that took place in this study that we did together with RAN. It's a college located in the south of England, in a borough with mixed deprived and very affluent areas, but overall the borough is within the 10% of the most deprived nationally. It has around 700 students, and more than a third of them receive high needs funding, so many of them have some experiences of SEND. And in this college, students can opt for either academic, vocational training, or community learning courses. The intake arrived to school with very poor educational trajectories and are start further behind their nearest competitors at the national level. However, the college offers them an opportunity to take them where other colleges would have rejected them because they would represent high risk for those colleges. And regardless of these difficult circumstances, the college manages to take them to very good results. For example, students who receive their maths and English GCSEs in this college perform better than the national average of reciters.
Yeah.
So what we wanted under this scenario of disempowered staff across further education college, we wanted to empower them in the creation and participation of a game that aims to, one, foster staff reflection on school belonging, and second, to portray co-researchers' findings whilst teaching other teachers about school belonging. So the overall aim of the project was to design a serious game, not a game just for entertaining purposes, but that they can take something out of that apart from entertaining, that can be a tool to enhance teachers' understanding of school belonging, but not necessarily be an instrument to improve school belonging in this college. So it's mainly used as a continuous professional development tool for teachers.
So maybe just a step back, and why did we think that a game would be a good thing, or designing a game would be a good thing to understand social science research? So here's a little table. This is based on a definition of games. So games are a system. They have their own complete set of things. These things are players. So there's obviously going to be players. There is some kind of conflict which you have to solve, and there are rules. And if you think about social science research, it's a social system. We're trying to look at the social system and understand it. We try to look at the players within the system. There are going to be conflicts, which we try to understand. And there's going to be rules, or we try to understand the rules that govern the system. So in a way, I'm not saying they're the same thing, but in a way, by drawing parallels, we can try to see, or maybe that's the question, can designing a game help people understand social science research? Of course, I should say that they're also very different, because games are an artificial representation of something, whereas social science research investigates reality, or at least we hope it investigates reality. And games have a quantifiable outcome which has no consequences. So if you win or you lose, it doesn't matter. Life, that's a bit more serious, perhaps. So the process of the whole project was like this. So we went into the college. We talked about school belonging. Christina talking about school belonging. We also discussed data collection and what limitations. So maybe just to mention, this whole process had to be very fast. So of course, working with a real further education college and not a theoretical one means there's going to be constraints, and we had to be very fast. We had only, I think, 1 month to run these 3 workshops. So also with that in mind, we also had to get sort of ethics approval before actually going in, and there were certain things. Anyway, so we discussed what data collection we could collect and what we couldn't, and we decided together what the research questions would be. Between the workshops, we asked teachers to collect data from students. In the second workshop, we started looking at that data and also decide what is missing, so what they need to get for the third workshop. But we also started to talk about game mechanisms. So we actually played different kinds of games for them to think, which game is describing the system or our findings the best. Workshop 3, between the workshops, more data was collected. Workshop 3, we completed the data analysis. And then, with having played a few more games, we decided together what are the specifications going to be of the game. We really wanted to design the game all the way with the teachers, but that was impossible with the time frame. So we did just decide this has to be in the game. This is going to reflect best our findings. Then we took it, we finalized the game, we brought it back to the teachers, and then we interviewed the teachers, which Christina will present in a minute. Regarding data collection, so in workshop 1 we presented principles of data collection, also ethics and the kind of things they can do. So what the teachers opted for was they wanted to focus on space, and they wanted to give maps of the campus to the students, and then students reacted to that. So they color different areas according to how they feel, whether it's areas that they feel they belong to or they don't belong to, or any other comments. I think, and it was an ongoing process from workshop 1 to workshop 3. Anything else for this?
We gave them also the option of collecting data through other means, not just through the map. So they chose other things as well, like drawings, for example, things that could be accessible to students, especially many students with SEND experiences. But the majority of students chose to use the map, so the map proved to be a very useful tool of data collection. It was very accessible for them, so they were doing different things. Some of them were highlighting, others were just mentioning, putting crosses where they felt they belonged or not to that space. But it was not just the only tool for collecting data.
Lovely. So just so you get a picture of what it looked like. So these are our co-researchers in action, playing different games, understanding different game mechanisms, also collaborative games versus competitive games. This is also a collaborative game. And this is sort of our first prototype, which then turned into that.
So why did we focus on space? I think that was quite evident from what Ran has said. It was the teachers themselves wanting to focus on space. Although space has a kind of marginal role in research as well, it was not our own idea. So after all these workshops, they really wanted to see, for them was important to see what areas of the school fostered or hindered school belonging. So after the workshops, we worked a lot, as Ian could say as well, on for example, the research questions. We helped them obviously to devise these 2 final research questions, but they were their own construction. So one group, we divided them in 2 groups. One group came up with what elements enhance school belonging in the college, obviously in the eyes of students and staff that would be later interviewed by the co-researchers. And the other group came up with what are the challenges and barriers for school belonging with these participants. So then with this input from teachers, we went back to the theory or the literature on school belonging. And first of all, let's say that overall school belonging is defined as the affective and emotional dimension of students' experiences at school. But as I have said, we wanted to go back to this literature because the literature portrays an overall focus on the benefits granted by school belonging, especially in relation to students' well-being. Many studies portray a progression whereby school belonging takes place when the conditions at the both student and the school levels are met, and then showing a positive display of outcomes such as student engagement or academic achievement, pleasant school climate. But we want to contend this view as a linear trajectory of school belonging. So what we proposed is to grasp the complexities and spatial features associated with the concept of belonging, since we have this input from the co-researchers, and then our focus shifted to what is the interrelationship between space and belonging, so how space can afford, neglect, enhance belonging amongst college students. And to achieve this, we considered other things as well. For example, the bodies, the emotions, and the possibility, even the possibility of non-belonging, have in conceptualizations and practices of space and belonging. So we wanted to grasp these nuances, understanding of belonging that are mainly more prevalent in other disciplines, more sociology than education, for example, understanding belonging as something in society that is unfixed, responding to changes in time and context, something that is intersubjective, relational, reciprocal, so it depends on our relationship with others, as well as unstable, dynamic, and fluid. In our work with the concept of space, we use the work of Doreen Massey, a very prominent geographer. For her, space, social relationships exist in and across space and influence the identities of spaces. So she understands spaces as not fluid, as not static but fluid, and space is characterized by multiplicity, complexity, and heterogeneity. So we see a lot of similarities between the two concepts. So both concepts are socially constructed, that's another similarity, but as well, something interesting is that this structuring can also be resisted. And so this resistance to belong to a certain space is not always negative. And we see this among specifically college students who are older, who have their own agency to decide whether they want to belong or not to the college. And that is something that we ask as well to the teachers. So basically this diagram, what is showing are the most prominent themes that emerge from our thematic analysis. We can see that these ones here are very big, and this refers to the college context. So the difficult trajectories that students bring to college, and as well the deprivation around that area. However, despite these characteristics, the college provides a lot of security, a feeling of security to these students. For example, there are students who arrive to college at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave college at 4 o'clock in the afternoon because they feel safe in this space. It's not just the learning, it's as well the hot meals that they can get in there, the support from staff, and the socializing with other students. This other thing here is about the constraint of space. So the school is located in a huge ground, very big facilities, but the building itself, the construction is small in relation to the number of students that they get. So it's very difficult for students to feel like what is their own space in the building. There is not some spaces that teachers thought they would be good to enhance belonging turn up not to be. And so, however, the vocational students do have their own space because obviously the vocational nature of their subject, they need to be there constructing things or learning instruments, and they have more sense of belonging with respect to students or compared to students who are in the generic pathway, the academic pathway. They have to have math learning in one room, English in another room, and they have this lessons of belonging. Another big theme was the college outcomes. So the staff is very proud of the support they provide to students, at least the staff that we interviewed. And they are also very proud of the outcomes that students managed to achieve in this college. Many of them explain how the college broadens the horizons of students. For them, this is going to be the last opportunity. So they tell us this college is like the university experience with them. They will not, after this, they will not have any other learning opportunity. They will go, hopefully, to the work environment. So this, for them, is their opportunity to meet different people that they will not meet later on in their lives. They also have high expectations to students. They give a lot to them, but they expect a lot from them as well. And this other important topic is student belonging amongst students themselves, especially the theme of elective belonging. This agency to choose to belong or not, to resist to belong or not. And this other theme relates to the college rules. So the college has to put a lot of rules in place. Obviously, because there are many students, they cannot tolerate bad behavior, but also because of the vocational nature of the courses, they deal with big machinery, for example, so they need these rules to be very clear to everyone, but at the same time, they try to make these rules fair to everyone. And also the students are treated with a lot of respect and as adults, also because of the vocational nature of their disciplines.
So, thanks, Christina. This is just a general presentation of the game. Again, it's better if you just come and play it at one, but it will show some of the concept that Christina has shown about. So, the overall idea is that you are a student in the college and you have to get through the day and you have different missions. And as you go to complete your missions, things might happen. And you also discover different things about yourself. So that's one of the things that we found, that different students have very different views on the space. So for example, if we look at the student hub, which is sort of one of the general areas that all students can come and work, or the cafe, students don't always feel they belong there. And sometimes they feel they belong more in their home classroom. So one of the things we did, we added a perspective viewer, which is like a little, it's like a little plastic thing. And as you come to one of the areas, so specific cards, you need to use this to understand what your character feels about the space, because that's one of the things we found, is that it's very, it's specific to the different subjects and the different groups of students. So enough about the game. If you want to play it, come later.
So just to conclude the talk today, we found surprising findings even for the co-researchers. They were not expecting this at the beginning. For example, that what we have said, that the college space restricts student belonging. Students tend to feel that common areas like the canteen are not theirs. Also, we found different pathways have different sense of belonging. As I have said, vocational students feel a stronger sense of belonging compared to those in academic subjects. And despite these limitations of the college facilities, the interview staff firmly believe that they have a key role in fostering a sense of belonging among students. Despite the college context of inequality and deprivation, school belonging matters for staff. That's what we can say. Because we saw that staff, at least those who we interviewed, strive to create an atmosphere of security and empathy for all students, irrespective of their social origin or college pathway, although they also said that that is not a generalized view amongst all staff in the college. So they said that especially staff who are not facing students, those admin staff and other staff, do not share this core value of empathy and belonging in general. Our view, after all this data collection, is that this college contributes to turn around the destiny of youngsters who have limited opportunities elsewhere, and that is very dissimilar, very different from the discourses of deficit and trust study in a similar context in a different country.
So maybe just sort of final, where are we heading from here? So we focused on school belonging and we looked at the data of that. What we haven't done yet is looked at the sort of framework, which was also one of the aims we wanted from the project. So by framework, I mean, how did the co-design of the game, the game design help the participatory research with the co-researchers. So that's sort of, we have some data from that, and that will be the next step.
Thank you so much, and do you have any questions?